This video podcast is a discussion of the bill drafting guidance that we get from the California Legislature's joint rules. There are several sources of guidance in drafting bills and other forms of legislation in the California Legislature, including resolutions, the three types of them, and constitutional amendments. A major source of bill drafting guidance is actually found in the joint rules of the Assembly and Senate. So what are some of the joint rules applicable here? The first is Joint Rule 5, dealing with concurrent and joint resolutions that describe the two types. Concurrent resolutions relate to matters to be treated by both houses of the legislature, while joint resolutions relate to matters connected with the federal government. Remember that no resolutions are acted upon by the governor, so they don't go to the governor for approval in any way. And both concurrent and joint resolutions, as opposed to House resolutions, which are adopted by either the Assembly or Senate, but not both, concurrent and joint resolutions are adopted by both of the houses. Joint Rule 7 deals with the title of a bill. It says that the title of every bill introduced shall convey an accurate idea of the contents of the bill and shall indicate the scope of the act and the object to be accomplished. And this rule naturally instructs the bill drafter to include a title with every bill, which of course is also required by our state constitution in Article 4, and sets forth the parameters that need to be met while drafting a bill's title. It also makes clear later in Joint Rule 7 that an existing statute has to actually be amended by the bill. The bill can't just reference a code section that they plan on amending. Joint Rule 8 deals with the division of a bill into sections. And Joint Rule 8 tells the bill drafter to include individual sections of the bill for each code section that is being amended by the bill. Joint Rule 8 also provides guidance to the bill drafter that when adding new sections of code, that the bill drafter should utilize short in length sections, the number of words used, such as just a few sentences for each code section. Joint Rule 8.5 deals with the digest of bills that have been introduced. And Joint Rule 8.5 tells the bill drafter that you have to include a bill jacket or the cover around the bill language before its introduction, or the authors and co-authors, if there are any, sign it. Also, Joint Rule 8.5 requires the Legislative Council's digest to be included. That digest explains existing law and what the bill proposes to do in objective language. This is not an analysis of the bill, and there's nothing subjective. It's merely an objective statement of what existing law does and what the bill proposes to do. And that digest is required prior to the bill being introduced. Also, Joint Rule 8.5 requires the digest to be on the first page of the introduced bill. There's also Joint Rule 8.6 concerning the digest for bills that have been amended. And Joint Rule 8.6 requires the bill drafter to review and, if appropriate, edit the Legislative Council's digest after a bill has been amended. Joint Rule 8.6 also provides guidance that the existing law section of the digest, as well as the this bill would section, which is where the digest explains what a bill proposes to do, it may have to be modified, the digest provisions, if the bill has been substantially amended. Joint Rule 8.7 deals with errors in the Legislative Council digest, and it tells the bill drafter to correct any, what it says are material errors in the digest, and that has to occur with either the introduced or the amended version of the bill. So again, Joint Rule 8.7 requires digest errors to be corrected, and that does not require a formal amendment by a legislative committee or body. Joint Rule 9 deals with restrictions as to amendments, and it says that The bill drafter has to ensure that the language of an amendment or a substitute for the bill being amended is germane. That is, it's the same subject matter as the original bill. And this joint rule 9, also provides guidance to the bill drafter and says, you cannot amend a bill to merely add a co-author unless the Rules Committee of either house has given its permission for that single amendment. Next, we turn to Joint Rule 10, which deals with changes in existing law, which have to be marked by the author. And Joint Rule 10 tells the bill drafter to underline any new statutory language and to use strikeout for any repealed statutory language that is being amended into a bill. Joint Rule 10 also provides guidance that when an entire title, part, division, chapter, or article of a code is being repealed, then those repealed provisions do not have to be set forth in the bill in strikeout. Next, we turn to the all-important Joint Rule 10.5, which deals with the re-referral of a bill to a fiscal committee. And it says that a bill must be re-referred to the fiscal committee. This occurs after the policy committee acts, when that bill would do any of the following: 1, appropriate money; 2, result in a substantial expenditure of state money; 3, would result in a substantial increase or loss of revenue to the state; or 4, result in substantial reduction of expenditures of state money by reducing, transferring, or eliminating any existing responsibilities of any state agency, program, or function. It also notes in Joint Rule 10.5 that there are specified instances where a concurrent or a joint resolution is to be re-referred to the committee, the fiscal committee in either house, if it would involve either substantial expenditure of state money or a substantial loss of revenue for the state, in which case it also goes to the fiscal committee, which of course we call the Appropriations Committee in both the Senate and the Assembly. Next is Joint Rule 10.6, which is called the short title. And it says that the bill drafter cannot include the name of either a current or a former legislator as part of the title of the bill. That is now prohibited under Joint Rule 10.6. Joint Rule 10.7 deals with the heading of bills. And 10.7 tells the bill drafter to only include a legislator as the lead author from the respective house in which the bill is introduced. Now, the bill drafter can include a legislator from the other house if required approvals are provided by the respective houses. And also, Joint Rule 10.7 provides guidance that a bill drafter is not to include any language in the bill that the bill was requested to be introduced by anyone or any entity. So a bill cannot include the words by request or any words of similar import. Okay. Next, we jump down to Joint Rule 34.1, which deals with resolutions prepared by the Legislative Council. And this has some detailed rules to inform for the bill drafter, so the Office of Legislative Counsel, to inform any other legislators who request the same or a similar resolution to be drafted. Then Leg Counsel has to apprise the other authors or the other legislators. And similarly, Joint Rule 34.5 also deals with identical drafting requests when it is the drafting of a bill. And Joint Rule 34.4 instructs the bill drafter to inform a legislator of a similar or the same bill has already been introduced that year. And that is a summary of all the joint rules that give guidance or instruction to the drafting of bills, resolutions, and constitutional amendments in California.